Okay, guys, good afternoon. Give me a few minutes. Let me sort out this lighting issue coming in. Just give me a minute, please. One second. Okay, that's better. There was a lot of light coming in. What about that? Hello, hello. Welcome to today's YouTube Live. Today is the 20th of July, 2024. Let's give it a couple of minutes, few minutes for people to join in, and then we'll kick off. All right. All right. So today I'm going to be talking about many things affecting Gambia. But obviously, Monday is the 22nd of July, 2024, and we're going to be talking about 22nd of July, 1994. So just to let you guys know that this is what's going on, and I'm going to be talking about APRC and APRC's development over the last, well, over the 22 years of APRC and APRC. Yeah. So you guys wait, let people join in, then we can kickstart. I'll set my phone to record as well, so that the WhatsApp massive, WhatsApp groups of Voice of Lamin, Tamba, and other WhatsApp groups can benefit from this program. It is very hot in London today, which is good. I love the heat. Yeah. All right. Okay, guys, welcome to today's YouTube Live. I'm going to be talking about Gambia, but the core of the theme today is about 22nd July anniversary of the AFPRC, APRC. And today's program will be talking about Gambia's record before the AFPRC and Gambia's record during the AFPRC and APRC and Gambia's record after the AFPRC, APRC era. And as always, my analysis will be unbiased, will be frank, there will be things that are written, documented, and uh, not in dispute whatsoever. So that's why um, I'm coming live so that we can share our ideas. We can talk about various issues. So yes, Welcome to today's edition of the Voice of Lamin Tamba YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate the time you dedicate to come and listen to me, the time you dedicate for us to have a chat, for us to talk about different things, our beloved Gambia. And right now, Gambia is in a very difficult situation, but people in government agree with it or not. They have to as a nation. Okay, now I can put this low battery, mobile data off, aeroplane run, record starts. Okay, way back, we're live on YouTube. So today's the 24th, sorry, 20th, 20. Today's the 20th of July 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning into YouTube Live today. It's Saturday, and I'll be discussing matters affecting the Republic of the Gambia. And there are loads of issues that are currently affecting the Republic of the Gambia in terms of our socio-economic development, in terms of security, in terms of governance, public administration. Many things are going the direction that Gambians hope they will be going after the change of government in 2017, January 2017. Now, my role as a compatriot, as a people, or as your compatriot, if you're watching and you're Gambian, my responsibility is to share information with the Gambian population. And I will be sharing information with the hope that the average Gambian population understands the message that I'm trying to portray. Uh, and I'm hoping that with the information that I share with the Gambian population, people will make informed decisions from it. Today is 20 July 2024. 2 days from now will be 22 July 2024. Once upon a time, there was a change of government in the Republic of Gambia, and the change of government took place on the 22nd of July 1994. Before 22nd of July 1994, Gambia had a government which was being administered by the People's Progressive Party, the PPP. And the head of the PPP and the president of the Republic of the Gambia at the time was His Excellency Dr. Alhaji Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara. May his soul in eternal peace because he's passed now. He passed away in 2019. Now, the PPP government was in power since 1962. First, Jawara was a prime minister and then became a president of the First Republic of the Gambia. And the military of the Gambia National Army, it used to be called, took the bold step of changing the government PPP on the 22nd of July. Now, many people rejoiced, many people celebrated, many people were talking about the change of government. They were jubilant. Now, the reason why government change was met with elation, with euphoria on the 22nd of July 1994 when it was announced by the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council, which was formed by 5 lieutenants from the Gambian National Army, as it was called in 1994. The chairman of the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council was the one and only His Excellency Sir Professor Alhaji Dr. Yaya A.J. Tijan. He became the chairman of the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council, which initially set out to form a transition government for 4 years. But following a public outcry, Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council decided to reduce their 4 year transition period to 2 years because they listen to the public, they listen to the institutions, they listen to international agencies, they listen to international institutions everywhere that were crying that the 4 year transition period was too long. So the young army lieutenants, young soldiers at the time, between the ages of 25 and 32, I believe, was the oldest one of Provisional Ruling Council, decided, okay, we're going to listen to the public, we're going to listen to international agencies, and we're going to reduce our 4-year transition period. And when they did that, after 2 years, President Jammeh and the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council decided that they were going to resign from the army and contest the elections that took place uh, in the elections that took place in 1996. President Jammeh resigned from the army as the chairman of the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council and decided that he was going to contest the elections that followed in 1996. Successfully, he won the elections in 1996. He was sworn in 1997 and became the second elected president of the Republic of the Gambia. So that is a history of what happened between 1962 and 1994 in a nutshell. That's not the whole story. The whole story we're going to talk about now in terms of the unprecedented development that we brought about when they changed the government of PPP in 1994. All right, but what's happening in the Gambia right now? There are many things that are happening in the Republic of the Gambia in terms of governance. All right, hold on a second, guys. Just give me a minute. I think the code is not working properly. So give me a second, please. All right. Okay, the recording is working now. Sorry, guys. I need to record my YouTube live so that I can share it to the Voice of Lamin Tamba WhatsApp network, Voice of Lamin Tamba 1, and Voice of Lamin Tamba 2. And it looked like the recording was interrupted momentarily. So, yes, we're talking about the AFPRC, the APRC. But before we get to that, let's look at what happened since President Jammeh left power uh, in January 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, the Gambia has now got a government which is being run by Adam Barrow. Adam Barrow's government is called the NPP government. Adam Barrow's government was born from Coalition 2016. Coalition 2016, when they started their campaign, when they started meeting the Gambian population, promised a lot of things that they knew quite well that they weren't going to fulfill. They knew very well what they were telling the Gambian population. They knew they were not there to bring about meaningful change in government. But because Gambians at the time were mostly deceived, some of them were lied to, a lot of Gambians, including myself, sadly, believed in some of the stories in the media out there, thinking that President Jammeh was a really bad person. He's a very, very bad person. And he was not worthy of another term in 2016. They didn't want President Jammeh to win another term and stay in power for another 5 years. So a lot of stuff was said, which wasn't quite true, which wasn't accurate at all. And some of the people who were involved in concocting these stories came out themselves and said we were making a false news articles, false information against President Jammeh because we wanted to tarnish his image and we wanted to change his government by all and any means necessary. That's what they said. All right, that's what they said once President Jammeh left office. They made up stories. They said things that didn't exist. They wanted to tarnish the image. They wanted Gambians to turn away from it, knowing fully well the amount of development that President Jammeh brought to it. And with that, President Jammeh left power in not the nicest ways. He left power anyway to keep Gambia in peace so that Gambia can be in peace. But anyway, uh, without spending far too much time talking about APRC right now, I'm going to go straight to Adam Barrow's government after talking about APRC. When President Jammeh came to power in 1994, Some of us were young, some of us were in school those days, formative years, and we've seen what PPP government did to the Gambian population, especially populations that didn't have any top officials working for the PPP government, and populations in and around the country, especially the countryside. We also are. There's no argument in that respect. People know. The average Gambian, anybody who's older than 35 in the Gambia at the moment, knows that when President Jammeh came, he excelled in almost every other area compared to the PPP government. Now, when the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council took over power on the 22nd of July 1994, young boys like myself, like thousands of other Gambians, were struggling to find schools nearby to go to school. Primary school, lower basic, middle school, senior secondary school. At the time, the education system was different. There was no such thing as middle school or senior secondary school. It was a three-tier education system. Maybe if you add Gambia College to it, or institutions like TTI and MDI, you might call it, it's a four-tier education system. So you have primary school, secondary school, high school, and those are the three formative years. Forget about MDI, GTTI, and Gambia College. These are the three formative stages of education at the time: primary school, secondary school, high school. If you did very well in primary school and you were able to afford tuition fees of high, and you were able to get a guardian or a family nearby, or even if your family lived near a high school of your choice, you went to high school without a problem. There were three factors when we were little. If you wanted to go to high school, one, you have to do very well in common entrance exam. All right, you had to perform very well in common entrance exams. Number two, if you did very well and you met the cutoff mark of the only five high schools or seven high schools that existed in the Gambia at the time, out of the whole country, if you did very well, then you had to think about whether your family will be able to afford tuition fees for high school. They were not cheap by the standards of Gambian currency at the time. So you've got good grades, you can afford tuition fees. Next thing was there were no high schools within short walking distance or within walking distance to many students up and down the country. If you had no high school of your choice nearby or within walking distance to schools, because we had school buses that time, but the school buses were confined to urban areas of the Gambia from Brikama to Banjul. And even the school buses were inadequate, but they did their job anyway. They took students to and from school. However, for the majority of Gambian students, accommodation became the third hurdle. So you did very well at common entrance. You can afford your tuition fees. The next one is accommodation. If you lived in many parts of the Gambia, the majority of Gambia needed a guardian family, needed accommodation somewhere near a high school of their choice. Many didn't get that opportunity. They didn't have any guardian. Many students didn't have tuition fees. So therefore, they resorted to going to secondary school. Secondary school was cheaper than high school at the time. And secondary schools were more readily available than high schools at the time. There were many more secondary schools than high schools in the country. So if you did very well at common entrance and you couldn't afford your tuition fees, or you could afford tuition fees, but you couldn't find accommodation at the high school of your choice, you got down to secondary school and you went to secondary school. Something which we were all victims of at the time, the regime. There were about 5 to 7 high schools in the length and breadth of the Gambia before 1994. So if you were fortunate, you did high school. There were many bright students who did very well at common into high school. They ended up in seniors in secondary school. All right, there was no such thing as middle school, senior secondary school. And those fortunate ones, when they finished secondary school, some of them were lucky enough to transition from secondary school to high school and went and did Form 4, Form 5 high school and went on to do A levels, 2 years A levels, and continued to the Gambia College or continued to their various careers in the government, employed by the government or private agencies. That was the system in the Gambia. There was Gambia College, there was Gambia Technical Training Institute, there was Management Development Institute, MDI, GTTI, Gambia College. Those were the tertiary institutions, but not many people were privileged enough to go to them because of what tuition fees, accommodation, or the unavailability of schools to move from primary school to the next level of your education. Our Forces Provisional Ruling Council came and changed all that. They transformed the education system entirely. Why? Straight away, young army lieutenants then became captains, then became colonels, started building schools up and down the countries. And they transformed the education system of the Gambia. They did away with um, high school system and secondary school system, and then created a three-tier system of formative education. So you went to lower basic, which is primary school, I think. Then you have middle school, which is year 7 to year 9. Then after middle school, you went to senior secondary school, which is year 10 to year 12, another 3 years. So basically, secondary school became 6 years. All right. So instead of doing primary 1 to 6, then you go to secondary school for 4 years, or you went to high school for 5 years. You went from primary school to junior school to senior school. So after primary school, you spent 6 years in formative education. And then you could go to university or find employment in the public or private sector. So the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council changed the education system to a three-tier level. Not only did they build schools up and down the country, they reduced traveling distances from 10 to 15 kilometers return journeys to about 5 kilometers return journeys in 2016 when President Jammeh left, which was an immense achievement because some students, again, many people who were older than me or about my generation didn't go to school because the nearest school was about 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers walking distance return journey. For that reason, many people my generation or generations older than me didn't attend school because schools were very far away before 1994. There was a lot of Gambian population that didn't go to school before, and those were the factors I mentioned previously. One, the unavailability of primary schools and secondary schools. Two, if we did well in primary school, there was no secondary school really available. Three, if we did well, you had secondary schools or senior secondary schools available. You had to think about tuition fees. And then four, you had to think about accommodation because schools were not local. You had to travel to other regions of the country to be able to go to high school or secondary school. So for those reasons, those impediments, those hurdles, many Gambians, my generation or older than me, didn't attend school. And that's because the PPP government totally failed generations, many generations of Gambians between 1962 and 1993. However, with the advent of the Armed Forces Provisional Council, most of those issues were fixed because schools were built. We went from about 231 schools overall in the whole of the Gambia, 231 schools in the whole of the Gambia, to about 1,031 schools by the time President Jammeh left on the 21st of January or 22nd of January 2017. Unprecedented development. From 231 schools to about 1,031 schools by 2016. So in the space of 22 years, the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council, AFPRC and APRC, built roughly 800 schools in the length and breadth of the Republic of the Gambia, to a point where the average Gambian today is either well literate or functionally literate, at least people can read and write. Comprehension might not be top notch. Their aptitude might not be top notch, but that's better than nothing. As they always say, half a loaf is better than uh, no loaf. So that's what the Armed Forces Professional Ruling Council and the AAPRC did in the Republic of the Gambia. From 231 schools that were highly competitive and students couldn't fit in those schools, which resulted in the high illiteracy rate in the Republic of the Gambia. So what became schools within 5 kilometer return journey for every Gambian citizen, every Gambian student. You could go to your nearest school, 2.5 kilometers walk to your school, 2.5 kilometers return. And the vision of the APRC was by 2020, that radius catchment area of schools was going to, the catchment area of schools was going to go from 5 kilometers return journey to these schools to 3 kilometers. So that meant that every student in the Gambia would have been able to travel to their nearest school and back within 1.5 kilometer to the school and 1.5 kilometer return. That's what was going to happen. All right. So the achievement of the AFPR was unprecedented between the years of 1994 and 2017. All right. First and foremost, they built more schools. Secondly, they made schools accessible. Thirdly, they made schools free for many people and made it compulsory for our women that went to school those days because of cultural reasons. And I'll come to those reasons in a minute. All right. Our women, our sisters, my older sisters didn't go to school, or even if they went to school, they didn't complete education because of certain reasons. And those reasons were culturally, many families thought educating women was going to benefit the family of the woman's husband when they're married. That's why many of our sisters didn't go to school before 1994, or when they went to school, they didn't complete education. In addition to the factors I mentioned before, unavailability of schools, difficulty of paying tuition fees, all right, and unavailability of guardians. Those factors affected our sisters as well. But on top of those four factors I mentioned earlier, our sisters didn't go to school because culturally people felt that educating boys was more valuable than educating girls. Because if you educate a girl and she married, she went on to benefit the family of the man that she's married to. That's how people used to think. That mentality has changed significantly now. Again, thanks to the education drive that was brought about by the APRC and the APRC government. Because they made girls' education not only free, they made it compulsory. They took away the excuses that families had of not sending girls to school by thinking, oh, it's going to be expensive. If I invest in girls, they're going to go and marry men and then benefit the family of their husbands. The AFPRC and the APRC government eradicated that excuse that many Gambian families were using before 1994. They made girls' education compulsory. They made it free. They built schools near those girls' houses. You travel within 5 kilometers in a return journey, 2.5 kilometers to school, 2.5 kilometers back to your house. They built several middle schools. They built several senior secondary schools. They made education accessible to every single Gambian and made it mandatory to every single Gambian. With that, the the percentage of literacy in the Gambia went through the roof. And that's what the APRC did. That's what the APRC government did. And they brought about transformative agenda for all Gambian citizens. So today, many of the cultural practices that were harmful to Gambian ladies, Gambian women, many of the cultural practices that were harmful to the Gambian populations, those cultural practices were abandoned because people became more aware, people became more educated. It improved the socio-economic status of the Republic of the Gambia by far. Because today, the Gambian economy is about 13 times bigger than what it was in 1994. The revenue base of the Republic of the Gambia is much bigger than what it was in 1994. Obviously, that was going to happen with the expansion of population. But again, with the establishment of the education system, the health sector, agricultural sector, tourism sector, the expansion of our revenue base grew exponentially, significantly, I should say. And that's down to what the AFPRC did, what the government did under the leadership of His Excellency, Sir Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya Jammeh. And with the Armed Forces Professional Ruling Council, we have to give credit to Yankuba Ture, credit to uh, Edward Sabali, Edward Singate, Sana Sabali, and the late Masiru Barrow, and all the people who conjured up this idea of overthrowing the PPP government. By all accounts, the PPP government is a failed government. We don't want unconstitutional change of power. No, we don't want that. But we can also agree that the PPP government failed massively. Everybody knows if you're over 35, certainly if you're over 40, you knew PPP government was a massive failure. And now the younger generation now know the NPP government and the coalition 2016 are all failures because we saw PPP government, we saw the APRC government. Now we're seeing the NPP government, and you can compare all three governments. The younger generation might not have seen the PPP government, but they saw the APRC government, and now they're seeing the NPP government, and the gap could be wider. The gap between NPP government and the APRC government is so huge, is so wide that you're wondering whether this is actually the same Gambia that we're looking at right now. Yeah. So anyway, what we're trying to demonstrate here is basically if you're talking about government, you have to compare the past, the present, and the future. And that's how you scale your government and what your ambitions are, what your manifesto is going to be when you begin the government. If you don't compare governments, how else will you know that you've taken the agenda, the development agenda from A to B to C to D to Z? How will you know? You will not know. You have to look at what the PPP government did. You look at what the APRC government did, and you look at what Adam Barrow is doing now. And if you compare the three governments, you can tell the difference in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of crime rates, in terms of tourism, in terms of communication, in terms of energy supply, water supply, agriculture, you name it. All right. So 22nd July 1994, 22nd July 2024, we are going to celebrate the revolution on Monday. But we're going to keep it low key, we're going to keep it calm, we're going to remind people that once upon a time, the Republic of the Gambia had a government that cared about the welfare of its citizens, a government that cared about transforming the socioeconomic status of the citizenry. We had a government that cared about keeping the streets and our homes safe for every Gambian citizen. We had a government that cared about productivity in the nation. Agriculture was at its peak by the time President Jammeh left power. Now our agricultural sector is collapsing. We heard the people of CRR, Central River Region, crying about the shortage of water supply to their rice farms, to other uh, rice projects that were created by the government of the Gambia. Why is there a sudden change? Despite PPP's failure, the rice fields in uh, Jahali Pachar or Sapo didn't suffer the kind of collapse that they're suffering now. Farmers are crying. Their mechanized farming was obliterated by the government of Adam Barrow coalition. President Jammeh was rapidly transforming our agriculture to mechanized agriculture, industrial farming, commercial farming. President Jammeh distributed lots of tractors to families up and down the country, nationwide, and Gambia's productivity was at its peak compared to the previous regime and compared compared to the years that President Jammeh was in power until he was hundreds and hundreds of tractors for Gambian farmers. Because of the collapse of our mechanized farming, the productivity of the Gambian population dropped significantly. And when productivity drops, that means the commodities that we find in our market become scarce. And when commodities are scarce, when you have more demand than the supply to our market, it inevitably leads to price increases in everything. Although the government of Adam Barrow would like to blame COVID-19, which was exacerbated, or the misery was compounded by the conflict in Ukraine, because I hear Ahmad Ba and the Barrow government blaming coronavirus, blaming the conflict in Ukraine for the price rises. No, I understand that those factors have a bearing on the price of commodities worldwide. And I'm not discounting the fact that prices in the Gambia would have gone up anyway. But what we all have to agree with is that the price of commodities in the Gambia started increasing in 2018 significantly. And we all saw it. People were crying about the increase in commodities since 2017. People like myself did Facebook Lives about it, wrote about it. The price of fish started going through the roof since they started selling Gambian fishing licenses willy-nilly to the Chinese, to the European Union, to France, to other fishing entities globally. So this is a new thing. It's government policy that affected the price of commodities in our markets. To a point where survival became very difficult. And when survival is difficult, prices are high, unemployment has gone through the roof. It creates an atmosphere where people's survival becomes desperate. And when survival becomes desperate, people resort to all sorts of criminality, rampant corruption, anything that they can do to put food on the table. Sometimes even food on the table, people become greedier and greedier to a point where they no longer have any conscience. They lose empathy for the people they serve. They are no longer sympathetic to the cause that put them in power in the first place. When Adam Barrow's government came to power, or before they came to power, they promised Gambian people that they'll reduce the price of rice from $900 per bag of rice to $500. They promised to reduce the price of sugar from $900 per bag of sugar to $500. They promised Gambian farmers that they'll reduce the price of fertilizer from $500 to $250. They promised Gambian population free visas. They promised Gambian populations so many things that they knew quite well that they weren't going to deliver. And when Adam Barrow, the current president of the Gambia, was confronted with those promises, coalition 2016 promises, he said, "Oh, when you're on the campaign, you can tell the population what you like, even if you may not to fulfill those promises when you win the election." Which effectively means you can lie to your population, you can lie to your electorate, you can lie to your voters. That's why he said you can tell people when you're on the campaign trail, just tell them anything, even if you knew fully well that you weren't going to be able to, or you have no willingness to implement those policies. That's what the government of the Gambia, led by Adam Barrow, told us. Adam Barrow himself from the horse's mouth. So that you can tell them anything, even if you mean not to implement those programs and policies when they win the election. Just tell them what you want. So they told us a bag of rice will go down to 500, a bag of sugar will go down to 500, a bag of fertilizer will go down to 250. They'll give people faith that they will re-establish the relationship between the Gambia and the outside world because, according to them, President Jammeh fell out with the Western world. But what we're seeing now is worse between Adam Barrow and the Western world. The EU have cut their hands. They cut their links between them and the government of Adam Barrow. They found out he was fake. The same thing the IMF warned the government of Adam Barrow. Many institutions warned the government of Adam Barrow. We are at levels that we've never seen before in the Republic of Sudan. But I'll come to that debt level in a minute when I'm talking about the unavailability of ID cards, passports, the unavailability of national identity because of the corruption and incompetence that's infiltrated the government of Adam Barrow. I'll come to that in a minute. I'm just going to talk about the successes of the APRC for now, because of the 22nd July revolution that's coming on Monday. All right. So, well, the reason President Jammeh mechanized agriculture, very simple. The reason he mechanized it is exactly what we're facing today. When you have mechanized agriculture, productivity goes up, it increases. That way, we can supply our market with most of our domestic consumables. And when the market is adequately supplied, it maintains the prices of commodities. The prices do not skyrocket because there's more than supply, more than enough supply than the people looking for commodities. If you suddenly take over from President Jammeh and you took over tractors from people, and people can no longer produce what they were producing with equipment, then the supply of commodities to the market reduce. And when those supplies reduce, that means the demand is higher than the supply of commodities. Inevitably, whether we like it or not, the prices of commodities are bound to go up because there is more competition for these items than the supply of items to the market. That's why since 2018, Gambians were crying about the increase of prices. It got worse in 2019. It got worse in 2020, 2021, 2022. Right now, it's survival of the fittest in the Republic of the Gambia. And I'm talking to you today, 20th of July, 2024. You would think that these people, after all the allegations they leveled against President, that when they took over power in 2017, that they were going to be a revelation. In April 2017, Adam Barrow promised Gambian population that the supply of electricity, the power cuts were going to be history very soon. In his own words, he said under President Jammeh, we were suffering power cuts between 17 to 19 a day, according to Adam Barrow's own words. I don't know whether I should believe that or not, but we all know what Adam Barrow said was very far from the truth. Several things that Adam Barrow said on the podium in front of the public turned out to be nothing but half truths, falsehood, and nothing but deception. Barrow stood here and said NAWEX increased our capacity to a level where they even had to switch off generators because Gambia had enough adequate electricity supply, reliable electricity supply. But twice Adam Barrow was on the podium giving speeches, maybe three times, and we suffered power cuts, one of many in a day. Maybe we're getting more than, actually, we're not even many power cuts anymore. Many areas of human Gambia electricity started. So you can't cut what doesn't exist. But if again, 22nd July 1994, out expanded electricity, took it to the countryside. The length and breadth of Gambia has now got electricity. Maybe electricity is not installed in every household, but that's down to the fact that the resources aren't available for every household to have pipe-borne water or to have electricity in their houses. But in many places in the Gambia now, you can actually get electricity to charge your phones, electricity to power your homes, something that didn't happen before 1994. On top of that, now you can get mobile data on every inch of Gambian soil. You can have internet everywhere you travel to in the Gambia. Thanks to the revolution of 22nd July 1994. On top of that, now we have hospitals and major health centers. Before President Jammeh became president in July 1994, we only had two hospitals in the Gambia, two main hospitals, one referral hospital and another hospital in Bansang, government hospitals. I'm not talking about uh, the dispensaries and other clinics built by Catholic missionaries or Anglican missionaries and all that. I'm talking about I'm mentioning what we're talking about now, we're talking about government projects. We're not talking about projects built by MRC Holland. We're not talking about projects built by Save the People, Save the Children's Fund. We're not talking about schools built by Action Aid. We're talking about schools built by CCF. We're talking about government established institutions. When President Jammeh came, the AFPRC, they built hospitals in Farafenni. They built major centers everywhere. They built hospitals in Bundung. They built hospitals in Boyam. They built hospitals in many, many places. 14 major hospitals, health centers they built, out of only 2 that we had in 1994. So from 1962, when the PPP took over from UP, their SDI was wrongly deposed in 1962 by some maneuvering by PPP echelon and all right? But that's a history topic of its own. Let's pay attention to what the AFPRC and APRC did. In 1994, we had only 2 hospitals, government hospitals. By 2016, we had 14 new ones built and erected by the government of President Jammeh, the AFPRC, APRC. By 1994, we had 231 schools. By 2016, we had 1,031. By 1994, we had no university. By 1996, 1999, we had our own university, University of the Gambia. By 1994, there was no university in the Gambia. Now we have 3 universities in the Gambia. If you take the University of the Gambia, the International University, and what's the other one called again? Is it American University or Cavendish? I can't remember now. But anyway, there are 3 universities in the Gambia right now. There were none in 1994. Gambia is now littered with degree holders, government departments. Our intellectual capacity, our capacity in government has increased significantly since the AFPRC, APRC came to power. In 1994, Gambia had no television station. Our generation, when we were little, we were watching Senegalese television and we had to learn French forcefully. I can speak French a little bit. I understand French very well, although I demonstrate to you guys here. But yeah, we had to listen to TV and watch TV in French. Radio Gambia only covered up to Kafuta, and then you didn't get it. Or you had to climb up trees like the full roof of your house and erect your own antenna. Yeah, like the fullers, you had to climb up the tree and erect your own antenna to be able to tune to Radio Gambia or Radio C by the time. We only had 2 radio stations. So for all the accusations that they put on President Jammeh, that he wasn't receptive, receptive to freedom of speech, that he wasn't receptive to freedom of expression, that he didn't like free media, all those bogus stories that they spread against President Jammeh were false. Because when President Jammeh came, we only had 2 radio stations. We had Radio Combo, which was supposed to be Radio Gambia, but the reason it was nicknamed Radio Combo, you could only tune to it when you're in the Combo area, up to Kafuta block. After block, you got scrambled signals. You couldn't tune to Radio Gambia properly. You had to improvise your own antenna or a mast somewhere. You had to erect your own mast or antenna to be able to tune to Radio Gambia and Radio C when we were little. When the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council came, not only did they make Radio Gambia national, even the Senegalese towns and villages near the border were tuning into Radio Gambia. Even today, most of these border villages in Senegal tune to Radio Gambia. They log on to Gambia's internet network because it's stronger than the Senegalese network. They come to Gambian hospitals. The other day, one of the Senegalese men was crying that in the old days when they were sick and they went to Farafenni Hospital, the hospital had a full stock of medications. These are Senegalese people, by the way, who were being treated at Farafenni Hospital, who were being treated at Bansang Hospital, who were being treated at Buyam Hospital. They were coming from Senegal to get medical treatment in the Gambia free of charge with adequate medication for the common ailments that they were suffering from. This never happened before 1994. Last year or the year before, this Senegalese guy was crying that now, when they go to Gambian hospital, there's absolutely nothing. No doctors in hospitals, no medicine in Gambian hospitals, no proper treatment in Gambian hospitals anymore because they live in the border villages and towns in Senegal. And Gambian hospitals under President Jammeh were very well managed. They had resident doctors, they had full medication. That didn't exist before 1994. The APRC brought about that unprecedented development that only didn't serve Gambian populations, it served Senegalese populations alike. That's the transformation that President Jammeh brought to the Gambia. So never talk about it. When President Jammeh came to power, we only had two half radios, Radio Gambia, Radio C. By the time President Jammeh left office in January 2017, there were more than 10 different media outlets in the Gambia. Freely. Their rights, freedoms, fundamental rights were not infringed upon by the government of APRC or President Jammeh. So therefore, when they talk about President Jammeh not being receptive to freedom of speech, freedom of expression, free media, they were just spreading false stories against President Jammeh. But we know that because they came out and confessed that they are mostly lying against President Jammeh because they wanted him out of power by any means necessary, by all means necessary. They didn't even have the moral high ground to stop at the point at which propaganda, opposition activity became a lie. Now, this is the difference between many Gambian politicians and Lamin. But I'm not going to lie, I don't like the government of Adam Barrow. I didn't like the government of UDP when they were in power 2017 to 2019, but I was not going to lie against Hussein Odabo. I was not going to lie against Khalifa Saleh. Certainly was not going to lie against Hamad Ba, Henry Gomez, Mai Ahmad Fati, and all those people who made up all these offenses. And even now, despite the abject failure, total failure of the Barrow government, I don't make up stories against him. I don't call him derogatory names. He's incompetent, yes, I'll say that. He's unpatriotic by giving up most of our republic's sovereign wealth to Senegal and external forces, and I'll talk to that in a minute. I'm giving you a comparison between AFPRC, APRC, and the government of PPP and the government of Adam Barrow. So they said President Jammeh was not receptive to free speech. But under President Jammeh, our media houses multiplied. Under President Jammeh, our print and online media houses doubled, tripled, quadrupled compared to what it was in 1994. President Jammeh himself stood on the podium, spoke about it a few times, that anybody who insults him, let them leave the person. He's not interested in arresting the person that insulted him. What he would not compromise with is Gambia's stability, security. He wouldn't compromise with that at all. But if you insulted him, he had no time for you. If you did politics against him, he had no time for you. But if you made up stories or you try to connive with bad elements to go and overthrow the government or destabilize the nation of the he will take emphatic action to ensure you didn't succeed. And any punishment that you deserve in the process of trying to unconstitutionally change the government or destabilize the Republic of the Gambia, you face the consequences. So what did the AFPRC do? They built us more schools. They built us more hospitals. They made education free and compulsory. They made it accessible, building schools everywhere, building health centers, clinics, dispensations everywhere. Expanded our primary health care to a point where we eradicated the most dangerous diseases that caused a lot of disabilities and deaths when we were little. Under the APRC government, yellow fever was eradicated, measles was eradicated, mumps was eradicated, rubella was eradicated, polio was eradicated. Our primary health care became second in Africa under President Jammeh. I think it was only second to Egypt or second to South Africa. Gambia's primary health care was one of the best, definitely the best in the sub-region, second to only one of them in Africa. I can't remember because I was a student at the School of Public Health at the time, and I graduated and I was looking at real-time statistics. In 2001, we're talking about. Primary health care in the Gambia was top-notch under President Jammeh, and I was part of immunization campaigns. I was head, the leader of immunization campaign teams. So you see, some of you look at me now and you think just because I got into Gambian politics, I didn't do much for Gambia, or just because I came to politics in 2017, I didn't care about Gambia. Yes, I did. I was not involved in politics. I had no interest in politics before impasse 2016, and I didn't participate in any political activity against or for President Jammeh between 1996 September and January 2017. So anybody tells you that Lamin Tamba was campaigning against President Jammeh prior to impasse 2016, December 2016, that person is just telling you fibs. They're just lying. But anyway, let's come down politics. I'm used to that now. If you're in politics or if you're a public figure, you're going to get all sorts of stories made against you. People are going to accuse you of all sorts of things that you don't know about yourself to start with. So President Jammeh, under him, our medical sector went up several notches. Our education sector went up several notches. Our agriculture went up several notches. Our security system went up several notches. Our tourism industry expanded from one or two little four-star hotels to five-star hotels and resorts everywhere in the Gambia. Our tourism industry went from a couple of thousand, few thousand employees to about 42,000 employees in the tourism sector alone under the APRC, five-star hotels everywhere, road networks everywhere, telecommunication everywhere, electricity everywhere, water supply everywhere. The streets were safe for man and woman, young or old, black or white, tall or short, man or woman. Wherever you come from, the streets of the Gambia belong to the public. Our homes were safe under President Jammeh. Now, our streets belong to the criminals. Our homes are not even safe enough for us. Look at that guy that said traveled from the England. Sorry, not from the England. The guy traveled from the United Kingdom, I wanted to say. Or I could say travel from England. He was tracked to his home and then attacked by armed robbers. Right now, the gentleman is fighting for his life in Gambian hospitals that have no medication, no scanners, no ultrasounds, no CT scanners in our hospitals, no medicine, no electricity, no water, no bed sheets, no spare beds in our hospitals today on the 20th of July 2024. Our hospitals do not have bed sheets. There are no adequate beds. There's no medication, no CT scanners, no ultrasounds, no X-ray machines, maybe one of each in our main referral hospital, Edward Francis Moore Teaching Hospital. Our main kidney department, dialysis department at Cardiff General Hospital collapsed. They didn't replace it, they didn't repair it. But this is the government of Adam Barrow. I didn't expect better. I listened to Barrow's um, interviews, about two of them in December, because I didn't know who Barrow was. I didn't know what was happening in Gambia politics until I heard that Gambia was getting into some sort of trouble. Civil war was impending. There was an impasse in the Gambia. There was a struggle. Then I woke up and got involved in Gambian politics. And most of the news headlines I was reading when I got involved in Gambian politics between December and January were mostly lies against Mr. Jammeh. And the liars themselves came out and confessed. This is not me making it up. They came out and confessed that they were lying against President Jammeh. Most of the posts and videos and radio programs that they were having and saying lots of things against President Jammeh were false. Now, unfortunately, for some of us who were never connected to Gambian politics, they thought that they were writing falsehood, and we commented those, we wrote stuff. When the truth became clear, I thought, okay, so all these things were lies then. But the AFPRC came, changed the Gambia infrastructure, every single magnificent structure we have in the Gambia now, that's owned by the government of the Gambia, was built by President Jammeh. The AFPRC and the APRC, every single ginormous, every single magnificent, every single gigantic structure you see in the Gambia today that we are proud of, touristically, aesthetically, those structures were erected by AFPRC, APRC government. The revolution was real. The revolution made a transformation that we never saw before. And that transformation ceased the very minute that President Jammeh ordered that aircraft and flew out of Gambian shoes and went to Equatorial Guinea. That was the last time we saw a government with ambition, a government that wanted everything good out there to land on Gambian soil for the Gambian population to benefit. Every single magnificent structure that Adam Barrow's government is trying to claim had its origin from the government of President Jammeh. Yes, government is continuity, but if he came into power and you inaugurate the Trans-Gambia Bridge, which they named Senegambia Bridge, give credit to President Jammeh, who was the architect of it. If you inaugurate the bridges in Wuli, Basse, and built by the Chinese who came after President Jammeh signed contracts with them under the Belt and Roads Initiative, or One Belt, One Road Initiative. Adam Barrow was just a coincidence who saw the beginning or the middle or the ending of these projects. He knew nothing about them. Give credit to the architect who is President Jammeh and the APRC government. The International Conference Center, which they renamed and called it Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara International Conference Center. Give credit to President Jammeh, who's the brainchild behind it. The OIC project, of which we are now loading that flyover in the Gambia, the first of its kind, which is, by the way, a very much watered down version of what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be far better than what we are seeing now in the Gambia. 4 lanes, which one way, 4 lanes the other way. The flyover was supposed to be better. The lighting system was supposed to be better. The project was supposed to be completed by June, July 2019, in time for the OIC summit in November 2019, if President Jammeh was still in power. The government of Adam Barrow accumulated close to $300 million for the OIC summit. The OIC summit flopped. Everybody knows the OIC summit failed. Out of 57 heads of states who were supposed to converge on Gambian soil if President Jammeh was in power and hosted it in November 2019, only 5 heads of states turned up and a 6th one from Cyprus, who wasn't part of the OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation. The OIC summit, $300 million. We were supposed to have 2 5-star hotels. One of them was the ill-fated Radisson Blue. It was never built. The second one, I don't know what happened to it. The roads are not finished. The roads are substandard construction that we're seeing now. Far worse than what they were supposed to look like. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to compare public administration in the Gambia since the colonial time, 400 to 500 years of British rule, 31, 32 years of PPP rule, 7 years of Adam Barrow's rule, you put them together, the 22 years of AFPRC, APRC under President Jammeh dwarfs all those years. President Jammeh's government was better than the 500 years before him. President Jammeh's government is better than the 7 years after it. 22nd July 1994, the revolution is real. It wasn't televised because we didn't have television in July 1994. We were tuning into Senegalese television station, or some families had satellites, which they were tuning to Arab channels and other channels outside of the Gambia. Those at the time were considered as privileged families, and they were spread few and far between, scattered around the cobbles. Electricity supply was pitiful. Water supply was pitiful. President Jammeh came and expanded all of those nationwide. So therefore, if you go around and tell the world that APRC didn't do much for the Republic of Ghana, you're joking. Some of the stuff that the APRC did, which dwarfs the 500 years before AFPRC, and then absolutely trumps the 7 years after the APRC. If you compare them, the gap between President Jammeh and Adam Barrow, or President Jawara and colonialism, is as wide as the earth and the sky. Brothers and sisters, Monday will be 22nd July 1994. Now, let's be honest to ourselves. Changing President Jammeh to Adam Barrow, we all have to agree, has been a catastrophic error. It's been a total catastrophe. We all have to agree with that. There's no argument now. Not even NPP that support Adam Barrow can stand up and tell us that crime rate in the Gambia now was the same under President Jammeh. That medical services now are the same as President Jammeh's period. That education now is the same as President Jammeh's period. That agriculture is the same as President Jammeh's time. That tourism is the same as President Jammeh's time. That our national security is the same as President Jammeh's time. That our fishing industry is the same as President Jammeh's time. All these sectors are suffering and on the brink of collapse, like the government of Adam Barrow and the debt level. That's crippling the government of Adam Barrow. When President Jammeh left, they told us that the Gambia was broke. It turned out they just wanted to steal $11–12 million. They said President Jammeh stole it in his last 2 weeks. It turned out it was false because central government had $100 million in surplus in their accounts. This is not the money central government has or the profits that they have. This is surplus money on top of their projections, what they expected central government to have. They have surplus, $100 million is surplus by April 2017. That came from the APRC government. Central government also had reserve, $75 million reserve. They said it, I didn't say. They were the ones publishing these figures in April 2017. But there was also a secret account somewhere. Again, they told us there was a secret account that was established by President Jammeh and he had $500 to $600 million. And they shared it between themselves, Coalition 16. Everybody remembers the scandal back in 2021, 2022, when the list was exposed as to which of Coalition 2016 partners took X amount of millions from that secret account. They're sitting on that list right now. So therefore, the government of President Jammeh can be said that it was far from bankruptcy that was announced during the impasse. It could be said that the government of President Jammeh left the Gambia with almost close to over $1 billion surplus in money that the government of the Gambia could have used to operate. $75 million, 100 million surplus, plus a secret account that they said had about 100 million in it. But they shared it between themselves. The money was bouncing from ecobank to ecobank. Gambia and Senegal, they siphoned that money between themselves. We saw the scandal. Again, I didn't release the list. The list was released about 2-3 years ago. And it caused uproar. The whole country was gripped by the fact that it turned out the UDP, the NRP, GMC, and all the other parties that were in the coalition shared money between themselves quietly. We saw it exposed. They shared the tractors. They shared livestock belonging to President Jammeh. They shared tractors belonging to farmers. They shared everything. The former Minister of Injustice, Abubakar Batambedu, said the proceeds of Jammeh's assets amounted to this proceeds of sales of Jammeh's assets amounted to $1.1 billion. Nobody has seen that $1.1 billion. Where did it go? The same people said President Jammeh was bad. They came to power in 2017 and started sacking civil servants who've been working for Gamtel, NAWEC, other companies since the 1980s. They had nothing to do with the AFPRC and they had nothing to do with the APRC government. They were serving their nation since the PPP regime. They came in because those people's faces didn't fit. They started sacking them in 2017 illegally. Ladies and gentlemen, President Jammeh, compared to the 500 years before him and compared to the 7 years before him, stands head and shoulders above all of them by every single factor, by every single comparison. 22nd July 1994, the revolution was real. But nobody else tell you anything about that. But nobody else tell you anything different. You will know. It's fact, it's cast iron. Look at the roads. Roads that walk about 800 kilometers, 600 to 800 kilometers of roads that were constructed. There was no people road in 1994. Just Banjul, Westfield, Caraba Avenue to find. Those were probably the only correct roads we had. Maybe the only black tarred road that we had was Caraba Avenue from Westfield to traffic was the only quality road I know of growing up that was there. Yes, and before the PPP government was overthrown, I've been to the Combos many times. Born and bred in the province, I've been to Combos many times. We had white cockle shell roads, which never lasted a lot. The PPP tactic was always telling the people near the elections that we're going to construct new roads. They're putting red gravel and pile it one place just before elections. When the elections had declared in PPP's favor, that was it. You didn't see the face of PPP again. That's how things disappeared. Hold on a second, let me sort this out. 1 minute, guys. Sorry, it was getting dark. All right, so definitely, ladies and gentlemen, this was APRC 22nd July. On Monday, let's join hands together and recognize the fact that there was a government in the Gambia that made every Gambian citizen believe. On 22nd July 1994, every Gambian child became equal. Privileged children understood that they had to share the privilege with every other Gambian child. Every other Gambian child was given opportunity that didn't exist before. Education was accessible. Education was free. Education was compulsory. Facilities were available. Whether you're connected in the government or not, you had a fair crack at the whip. Everybody had equal opportunities. That's when equality was experienced by every single Gambian. Whether you had an uncle in government or a dad in government or a mother in government, or you from the combos or you from as far away as Koina, the opportunity was there for you if you're willing to learn, or if you have a skill, or if you had anything that President Jammeh was aware of or his government was aware of, and they could transform it to you for you, they did. That's the day that the Gambian child believed that the sky is actually the limit, not the system. The system was not a hindrance. The system was not an impediment. The system was not an obstacle. Nothing stopped you if you were ambitious, if you were determined, and you were willing to make things different for yourself and your family. The opportunity was there. Scholarships were there nationwide. Scholarships were there internationally. International travel for peacekeeping missions and several other incentives that made people have that burning ambition to become successful Gambians. Most of them today running international institutions, throwing stones at President Jammeh. Wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for President Jammeh's adventurism, creativity, patriotism, Pan Africanism, his desire to transform the Gambia from a failed state, from an economic depression, economic recovery program. The government of the Gambia collapsed economically totally. Between 1987 and 1993, the IMF put Gambia on economic recovery program. The government of PPP totally collapsed economically. It was total economic decadence. Gambia was in a perilous state. Absolute total destitution. Energy shortages, water shortages, food shortages, you name it. Diseases were rampant. President Jammeh came, thankfully. Today in the Gambia, we're not talking about elephantitis. Today in the Gambia, we're not talking about yellow fever, no mumps, no rubella, no measles, no polio. Actually, I heard that polio was making a comeback last year in the Gambia. I hope whatever polio cases were found in the Gambia last year were a rarity. They were not going to expand to levels there were before President Jammeh of the AFPRC and APRC came to power. That would be extremely regrettable because we did, my generation of public health officers, we carried out massive immunization campaigns nationwide to eradicate some of these diseases. Thankfully, because of the expensive primary health care during my time as a junior public health officer, we eradicated many of these diseases. Polio is now non-existent, very rare if it came back last year. Yellow fever gone, elephantitis, measles, all these diseases now. Even cataract and other things reduced. Education helps in that aspect as well. There are so many political, cultural activities that used to happen when I was little that are not happening now because they're counterproductive. With education, people walked away from them. People did far better. People moved away from some of these toxic, harmful cultural activities that affected men and women. Our culture is powerful, it's vibrant, it's joyous, it's everything we have to uphold. But where it's demonstrated that it's harmful to us, we have to do away with. Some of these cultural practices were happening before generations of change. We still want to maintain the positive side of it, of cohesion, community, celebrating our culture that made us who we are. Or not. Let's still have Futampaf, let's still have Suno, let's still have Sabar, let's still have Sauruba, let's still have Bugarab. We can have festivals where we practice these things still without the harmful processes that were involved in the past. We can do away with those. Education got rid of some of the treatment that our women used to suffer. In the old days, they used to think if a man and a woman married, they couldn't get a child, it was the woman's fault. Thanks to AFPRC, APRC's education drive, now men and women know not having a child could be a woman's fault, could be a man's fault, or maybe none of them actually has a biological issue. They're not just mating at the right time to be able to conceive a child. Education has helped us overcome some of those stigmas that used to affect our women in society. If you're a woman, you would be the last person to stand there and start throwing stones at President Trump because we've seen how women get treated in our society before 1994. The stark contrast between pre 1994 women and post 1994 women is a marked difference, remarkable transformation of how we look at our women, how we treat our women, how we give them responsibility in our society. Not only did President Jammeh make women's education accessible, free, compulsory, he also gave women top positions in his government so that our girl child can believe that achievement in the Gambia, as President Jammeh used to famously say, the sky is the limit. Our women believed, our men supported them, we became cohesive, we became believers, we became determined, we became dedicated, we focused, we pushed, we succeeded. Some of the harmful cultural practices were left behind. The socio-economic impact of the AFPRC, APR is so enormous that sometimes I sit down and shake myself and think, These people calling President Jammeh names, accusing him of what they don't know, especially women who stand up and lie against President Jammeh and insult him and call him names, clearly are the most short-sighted people. Yes, President Jammeh was not going to be perfect. AFPRC was not going to be perfect. APRC is not going to be perfect. In fact, democracy is bordering on illusion. Probably doesn't exist anywhere. There will not be a single government, including a government that Lamin Tamba leads, that's not going to make mistakes. But as a government, what we're looking at is the government is not deliberately making this mistake. If it made a mistake, did it correct it? If it didn't correct it, what did the government do going forward? Did the government learn lessons from the last mistake they made? Was it deliberate? Did the government participate in pre-planning? Did the government participate in the act? Did the government participate in covering up after the act? That's government's responsibility. All right? Government's responsibility is if it wasn't involved in the pre-planning, it should not be involved in the act. If we found out that an evil act has been committed, it's the government's responsibility to investigate and take action. There will be no government that wouldn't make a mistake. There's no security service, police or army that wouldn't have civilians in the mix of it. Even in our hospitals, people are dying in our hospitals now. The government of Adam Barrow killed over 73 children for poisonous medicine. Sometimes as simple as negligence in our hospitals, or negligence in our police stations when somebody is detained, or negligence in transporting suspects, some people will die, or negligence in managing a situation, a combat situation, conflict situation, somebody gets shot to death, somebody gets beaten to death. No government is going to exist without mistakes. But what we want is mistakes that are genuine mistakes, not mistakes that were pre-planned. They're not mistakes when they're pre-planned. If a government pre-plans the murder of a citizen, that government should be held responsible. If the government pre-planned the cover-up of a murder or of an incident, the government should be held responsible. But no government will exist in this world without making mistakes. They always say the American government is the cradle of democracy. It's the example of democracy, the free world. You say what you want, you do what you want. Yet the government of America, via their police force, killed their own citizens more than any other government in the world. Their police pull the triggers at the slightest of confrontation or not carrying out instructions at the slightest, they'll shoot you and kill you. That's what the American police do. Yeah? That's what the American police do. But that's democracy. The government of the United States has killed more people since the Second World War via NATO or the United States via wars they waged since 1946 than any other country. Yet they are a democracy. The United Kingdom, the police kill people. Not long ago, one chap was gunned down by the police. And the police were at fault in some of those shootings. People die in hospitals in the United Kingdom from negligence. COVID, the negligence from COVID, how many people died? No government is perfect. But where the government is not perfect, when they recognize a mistake, they have to acknowledge it and prevent recurrence. The government is wrong when they plot the killing or the suffering of their own citizens. That's the problem. So President Jammeh will not be perfect, Gambian ladies, especially Gambian women. But President Jammeh has done a lot for Gambian women. He even passed laws to prevent domestic violence. And when we say domestic violence in Gambia, we know who is always at the receiving end, who gets beaten in homes and houses in the Gambia. It's women that get abused in their matrimonial houses, beaten up by men. Sometimes pure assault. Hurt women, beat them up like it's not the same women that you said you loved. Those domestic violence laws were passed. Laws protecting Gambian children were passed. Laws protecting women from female circumcision were passed. Many other government policies were passed to ensure power is balanced in our society between men and women. Women were given very important roles under APRC, AFPRC government. And therefore, when I see women calling President Jammeh names, lobbing grenades, hurling stones at him, I shake my head. Yes, you can't make mistakes. If you go and overthrow President Jammeh to shoot his head to kill him or destabilize the Gambia, you're going to get it back. No nation, American people, the police, don't even give you the chance to come out of your car. They shoot you and kill you, let alone somebody who's carried out a threat, carried guns, came to go and overthrow the government, destabilize the nation, shoot President Jammeh and his ministers and kill them. If you're plotting to overthrow the government or plotting to destabilize the nation, and you get found out by state intelligence services or the former National Intelligence Service, they'll deal with you. What they should have done is take you through the law courts rather than resorting to torture or some of the extrajudicial activities that took place or allegedly took place. Either way, the government of President Jammeh has done more for Gambia in its entire existence in terms of public administration. Recorded history, 400 years, 500 years of British rule colonialism, 32 years of PPP, 1962 to 1993, 31 years. 7 years of Adam Barrow. We're going backwards. In fact, sometimes you think this is actually decreed by God. God took President Jammeh out, gave us Adam Barrow so that we know that we had someone very important before. We didn't appreciate them. We lied against them. We made stories against them. We accused them of stuff we didn't know. We said things that we weren't sure of. Now we go Adam Barrow and stop it. Just today, brothers and sisters, two Gambian youths were stabbed to death. One in Yundum and one in North Bank region. Just today, two youths were stabbed to death because there's no deterrent. There's no punishment. It's selective justice. People have killed people in broad daylight in the Gambia now because their families are connected to the government. They are walking freely on Gambian soil. Something that never happened under President Jammeh. The APRC, 22nd July 1994 was real. The revolution was real. We brought changes that we never saw before. And after President Jammeh's departure, we're seeing all those changes collapsing, all the gains we made collapsing. Today, the government of Adam Barrow cannot print ID cards, cannot print identity documents like a passport, driving license, sorry. ID cards, driving license for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. We're struggling to get these things back on their regular service. Nothing but rampant corruption and uh, uh, excessive incompetence in the government of Adam Barrow. I told you guys when he was sacking Usman Ba, the Minister of Digital Economy or whatever it is, Information, Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, and sacked the other C lady, the Minister of Basic Education. He didn't sack them because they were dual citizens. No, they knew they were dual citizens when they were appointed. I've said this before. The dismissals of those two ministers was not as a result of their dual citizenship. It was as a result of those ministers probably taking bribes or taking costs or accepting contracts without giving NPP their cut. That is a prerequisite for dismissals under Adam Barrow. If you steal the government's money, Adam Barrow and his NPP don't care. But the minute you take $10 from NPP, or you took a government contract or bribe and you didn't give NPP their cut, you're out through the door. They don't care how much you steal. 148 million or 148 million goes missing, like Dr. Ahmad Samate, 148 gone missing. You're not going to get dismissed for that because that's government money. But you take $10 from NPP, or NPP's hard that you signed a Stemlex contract or SIPCA contract, and you didn't give them $10 of their cut from the Semlex or Simca contract. You're gone. You're doomed. Your department can kill over 73 children via poisonous medicine that you ordered. Barrow is not going to sack you. No, he's not interested in sacking you because that has nothing to do with it. In fact, Barrow came out and stood before the nation and said the doctors were doing well in respect of the 73 children all over. They think hundreds died from it. Barrow said the doctors were doing a good job. That's why he said before us all. It's the same way he said electricity. We have so much electricity, they turned off all the generators. Next thing you know, he was giving a speech publicly 2, 3 times and they cut power right in his face. Same thing with the ministers. You can steal all you want. I mean, if I was the president of the Gambia and my minister came and said, look, I lost 148 million, you're not going to spend the night in your position. Even if you spend the night, you would have been spending it at the police station while they investigated your office, your home, and everywhere else. You lost $148 million and you're still serving. Your department killed over 73 children and you're still serving. They got the chief to say President Jammeh's government under their TRRC report killed 51 people, 473 victims altogether in his 22 years in power. In just few years of Adam Barrow, 73 children, maybe a few hundred, were killed because of poisonous medicine. The shootings in Faraba, the shootings in Kanilai, the beating up of 3 years Jotna, as Adam Barrow himself said. When he dealt with 3 years Jotna, nobody told him a bag of salt was heavy, he said. He said he gassed and beat them up. That's the democracy we have. So all the allegations about President Jammeh not wanting free speech or free media were false. Media houses quadrupled under President Jammeh. All the allegations that he was a poor president, health services quadrupled, multiplied 20-fold under President Jammeh. Education, 4, 5, 10-fold under President Jammeh. Roads, infrastructure went up 10-fold, 20-fold under President Jammeh. Everything you can think of. The first university, the first television station, the first tarmac to the rural countryside, the first rural electricity, the first rural internet, the first rural water supply, the first rural hospitals built by the government, the first resident doctors in Gambia's history. Every single first was President Jammeh in Gambia's 560 years of public administration. 22 July 1994 is real. The revolution was real. On Monday, in 2 days' time, will be 22 July 2024. Let's give thanks and praises to the Almighty up there. Let's give thanks and praises to President Jammeh. My name is Lamin Tamba. This message will go to Voice of Lamin Tamba 1, Voice of Lamin Tamba 2. And this program is being presented on YouTube on the Voice of Lamin Tamba. Nothing but unsaponified truth. Nothing but undiluted truth. That's all I do. That's all I educate them with so that they know. If you're over 35 or certainly over 40, you would have known the PPP government, you would have seen the APRC government, and you're now seeing the NPP government. The difference couldn't be more contrasting. One stands aloof above the others. One's record is conspicuous, way up there, heads and shoulders above everything else. For 560 years of public administration in the Gambia, the era of APRC, AFPRC stands heads and shoulders above everything else. They are not on the same level. Sometimes it's quite criminal to compare Adam Barrow and President Jammeh. One cares about the Gambia. One cares about Africa. One cares about the advancement of his nation. One cares about the welfare of its citizens. The other one cares nothing but entrenchment of self, enrichment of self, cares nothing until you trample on his feeding trough. Then he'll jump and you're dismissed. Barrow is the most self-serving president we've had. Not even PPP. Jaura wasn't too self-serving. No. Adam Barrow was the first one that came. Within 4 or 5 months, he started building a mansion for himself. Within 4, 5, 6 months, his children started traveling overseas. Within a few years, he's built another house for himself. He's taken another government land that he's going to build this retirement home. He's enriched himself so much. At some point in 2021, 2022, there were rumors that he was worth about $400 million. Somebody who was a church mouse, somebody who's was struggling to make ends meet, somebody who could barely look after himself. Yes, he had a job as a rent collector or maybe selling plots of land. But he wasn't well off. He didn't have that much money. He didn't build a mansion for himself in Malcolm Kunda if he was well off. He didn't build a mansion for himself in the Combos if he was well off. Now Adam Barrow and his family are the biggest estate moguls in the world, and maybe outside of it. Adam Barrow's ministers, public officials are the biggest moguls in the Gambia, building mansions everywhere and buying them. Building mansions in Dakar and buying them. Building houses as far away as the United States or buying them. The same people who said President Jammeh cannot own one house after 22 years of presidency are the same people today who own 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 mansions worldwide. President Jammeh cannot have a single house. They seized all of it. They shared it between themselves. They seized all his livestock between themselves. They seized all his vehicles, shared it between themselves. They're still boasting about the projects that were brought to Gandan Show by the APRC government. The OMVG was supposed to give us reliable and stable electricity 24/7. Barrow allowed Senegal and the Macky Sall to delay that and delay that. Today, electricity is scarce. Some families haven't seen one drop of water come out of their taps in years. So, go to many areas downtown of Gambia. Are dying, our youth are drugged, our youth are turning to crime, our sectors are collapsing. The economy is in a place where driving licenses, ID cards, national identity documents are requested. Our hospitals don't have electricity, no standby generators, no water supply, no surgical gloves, simple things, painkillers, nothing is in our hospitals. People are dying like mental diseases. That's the government of Adam Barrow. That's where we moved away from in 1994. We've gone back there and it's getting worse. Because now, not only are we going back to the 80s or 70s, the cost of living now is far more debilitating than it was in 1993. So the 22nd July 1994 revolution, this is why families, especially Gambian women, it's about time we paid tribute to the APRC government for what they did in power, President and his colleagues for what they did in power. I probably benefited nothing from it, apart from the new School of Public Health campus that was built in Gambia College in Brikama. That was a government school, Gambia College. So apart from that, what did I get from the government of President Jammeh? Nothing. I recognize the immense work is done, the unprecedented development is done. And I began to find all these things in January 2017. And when I found out the truth, I decided I was going to support the most successful government in Gambia's history. And that is not a debate. You can accuse President Jammeh all you want of human rights violations. Everything you accuse him of, positively, he's done far better than the 500 years before him and the 7 years after him. I didn't support him because he's from Fonyi. I would have done that when he was in power. If I wanted to support President Jammeh because he's a Jola or he's from Fonyi, or I want to Jolanize it, I would have supported him when he was in power. Maybe I would have had something from him. Maybe I would have had a top government job. Who knows? The reason I got up to fight in politics is because I found the truth in January 2017. And I found most things that were said against the APRC government and the AFPRC were lies. I was up to fight against lies and propaganda. All the conniving attitude, all the conspirators, all the elements, instruments of darkness that rose up to create chaos in the Gambia. The Dukes of Anarchy, those were the people that got up to defend against. And together we fought and prevented what increasingly looked like a civil war impending in December, January 2017, December 2016, January 2017. By all accounts, it looked like Gambia was going to war. But because we all stood up, we all spoke up, we all stood up and fought for the truth throughout 2017. Some of the plans that Coalition 2016 had of trampling on other communities and other societies, other people, we managed to debunk them, we managed to expose them, we managed to put barriers between their sinister plots and the population. And today, we can thank President Jammeh for playing that key role of leaving power, leaving Gambian shores to keep Gambia in peace. By now, some of you listening to me might not have been alive to listen to me today. Because when war breaks out, when civil war starts, nobody knows where it's going to happen. People who might have been cheering you on might not have survived it. The houses that you have in the Gambia today might not have been there. They would have been pulverized by war machine. We might still be at civil war by now. Who knows? President Jammeh saw all of that and thought, I'm not going to allow my 22 years of unprecedented development to be undone in the space of a week or two or three, or in a few months or in a few years. Therefore, with all being said and done, I'm going to pack up my bags and leave the country in peace. But Gambians will see the result of changing the government ceremoniously and changing from a very decent person who had Gambia at heart, who had Africa at heart, to somebody who cares very little about the Republic of the Gambia. That person that we have now is self-serving, cares about himself only. Barrow himself said he didn't care about what his ministers were doing until his position became threatened. That's what he said. Any minister who threatened his position, he got up and sacked them straight away. But when the ministers were busy stealing 148 million or 500 million or 600 million that was in the secret account, they said was there, 75 million in reserve, stealing President Jammeh's livestock, his properties, he didn't care until you thought, I want to be president, I want to remove Barrow, I want to force him to resign. Then he sacks you. That's why he sacked all the ministers who were asking him, like OJ, Jallo, and others who were asking him to respect the 3-year transition. He dismissed them because they threatened his position. But when they stood up and said 148 million has gone missing, he didn't care. 600 million has gone missing, he didn't care. President Jammeh's assets gone missing, he didn't care. This is what's going on. Pan-African. President Jammeh, I didn't even talk about his Pan-Africanism. The peace he brought to Casamance, the peace he brought to Liberia, Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, Guinea-Bissau. If I want to talk about the APRC, I'll spend 2 days here talking about it. I've got the books there written by independent people about how Gambia changed from 1994 to 2016. The books are there, they're behind. President Jammeh's modern record on Pan-Africanism and bringing about lasting peace to Guinea-Bissau, to Senegal, to Ivory Coast, to Liberia, to Sierra Leone has not been done before him since African countries went independent and have not been done after him. Because the people we have in power now are not sincere for most of it. Congo is fighting, Sudan is fighting, Eritrea and Ethiopia just, or Tigray and Ethiopia just subsided a little bit. Mozambique is fighting, Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, civil war, terrorism, whatever you call them, or mercenaries sent by the West to come and destabilize us. Cameroon, everywhere you go. In West Africa, the subcontinent was like that. Civil war everywhere. President Jammeh came, Senegalese fighting subsided, Liberians fighting subsided, Sierra Leone fighting subsided, Guinea-Bissau stopped fighting. Ivory Coast, when they had their civil war, President Jammeh was involved in it. Now West Africa is all but free from civil war. What we have now is mercenaries sent to destabilize Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso for the sake of mineral wealth. And the same mercenaries stabilizing Nigeria, they're the ones giving Boko Haram and others weapons. It's not because we want to fight between ourselves or we have religious fights between ourselves. That's not the reason why we have civil wars in West Africa. The separatist movement in Senegal, southern Senegal, called Casamance, they were very bloody when I was little. Late 80s, early 90s, very bloody. When President Jammeh came, he snapped the extent of the civil war. And that civil war is still relatively managed. Until Adam Barrow came, there were not that many skirmishes between the Senegalese government and the separatist movement in Casamance. Adam Barrow came and provided a launch pad for the Senegalese government to attack MFDC, and Gambian populations became collateral. Over 10,000 Gambians have been displaced because of the policies of Barrow government of allowing Senegal to use Gambia as a staging post to attack the rebels or the freedom fighters in Casamance. What Jammeh did for Africa, no other modern president has done that. Bring peace to 4 or 5 different countries. The APRC regime, the development is unprecedented. Forget about PPP, forget about Barrow. None of them have come close to what the AFPRC did in their 2 years and what APRC did in 20 years. Barrow's programs, everything he's inaugurated so far is a project that had its origins from the APRC government. Hands down, no argument. We all know that. Barrow is a waste of time, failed, incompetent. The only reason Barrow is still in power is because of UDP. Because many people who voted for him hate UDP. They don't want UDP to go to power. And UDP are still busy chasing President Jammeh. He's their ambition. UDP's breakfast is President Jammeh, lunch President Jammeh, dinner President Jammeh, supper President Jammeh. Their nightmares are President Jammeh. They spend their time and effort and their preoccupations and dedication, and you give it any platitude or whatever attributes you give it. That's their preoccupation. And that's why I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen, unless President Jammeh comes and contests, or unless we have a very popular unifying candidate by 2026, forget about moving Adam Barrow from the polls. Forget about it. Because people are finding it very difficult to align their goals, their manifestos, their aims and aspirations with the United Democratic Party. And the United Democratic Party looks like they don't want to change anytime soon. And they cannot, I'll repeat this, unless something catastrophic happens, there's no way the UDP is going to dethrone Adam Barrow. The only way we can see the back of Adam Barrow is opposition unity. APRC, GDC, UDP, DOI, GAP, GFA, NUP, all these political parties, if we come together and select a suitable candidate to lead the coalition, Barrow is gone. We demonstrated it at national elections that the opposition had the popular vote. We demonstrated it during the local government elections that the opposition had the popular vote. So if you want to see the back of Barrow, opposition alliance with a competent candidate, one that cares, one that has empathy for the suffering that Gambians are facing, rampant murder, excessive corruption, no medical treatment, no schools, no employment. Everything is just heading in the wrong direction. The trajectory of where our country is going is quite serious. Meanwhile, our debt level is hitting the ceiling. The government of Adam Barrow again and borrowed another 95 million or something from the World Bank. We're already at about 120, 130 billion in debt, several times above our GDP. And they're going and borrowed another 90-something million dollars. And they're going to go back and borrow again. Yet we don't see where these millions are going to. Where's the OIC 300 million? Nobody knows very well. Where's the 25 million that the World Bank gave to NAWEC to improve capacity and make electricity reliable and adequate? Where is it? Where did NAWEC put that money? Where are the other loans? 375 million euros that the European Union gave. European Union said they've given more money to Adam Barrow's government in 2 years than the entire 20 years of President Jammeh. But under President Jammeh, we were seeing evidence of development. University campus that's just been built, maybe will soon be inaugurated, was President Jammeh's university campus. What are we going to talk about? What's Adam Barrow got for Gambian people? Nothing. It's going to remain like that. It's going to get worse. The ball is in our court. You UDP people, carry on chasing President Jammeh. You went to ECOWAS, trying to get President Jammeh again after exhausting all your domestic options. You failed, but you're still having your aspirations of seeing President Jammeh tried and prosecuted. I don't know under what law. If you don't like the current constitution, change. Until you change it, you got absolutely no legal option against President Jammeh or Adam Barrow when he leaves. You carry on. Your preoccupation is President Jammeh. President Jammeh, President Jammeh. Every time they say, oh, something negative happens in Barrow government, which is effectively UDP government, they say, oh, they're taking it from President Jammeh's rule book. They're taking a leaf from President Jammeh's book. Why can't Barrow take positive leaves from President Jammeh's book then? Why didn't UDP take positive leaves from President Jammeh's book? Because UDP was the de facto government between 2017 and 2019. They even told us not to ask President Barrow to leave after his 3-year transition. That if we did, they're going to sue us to court. As soon as Barrow sacked them because they wanted his position, suddenly they want Barrow out. If we don't unite and forego the ambition to prosecute President Jammeh, knowing fully well that it's unconstitutional to prosecute President Jammeh or the junta members, if we do not abandon that path that we're taking, there'll be no opposition unity. We might as well serve Adam Barrow his next 5 years on a silver platter with gold spoons and gold forks. Let him eat, because Barrow loves his food. He loves chew kong and duty and bahal. He even has a bahal cabinet. Yeah? So it's up to you guys. I am just giving you information so that you can make informed decisions. The political party leaders on the ground now, there can be a revelation if we unite. It's possible. As the political parties are right now on the 20th of July, 2024, as I'm speaking on the Voice of Lamin on my YouTube channel, I'm soon to be sharing this program on my Voice of Lamin Tamba 1 and Voice of Lamin Tamba 2 WhatsApp networks. No political party leader on the ground now can single-handedly unseat Adam Barrow. Take that to the bank. Now, those of you who listen to me and hear me clearly, but you try to twist my words, you will not succeed. I said all opposition parties come together and remove Barrow. If you want to go and tell people that Lamin Tamba said you give APRC to Benio Bokyaka, that's your own problem. I have no interest in looking for love in politics or public administration. That's not my ambition. All right? But if you guys want to start talking rubbish, you can go ahead and talk rubbish. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the APRC in a minute presentation. Minute presentation. There are several other things. The books are there. I was going to read them in the most significant pages, but I can't do that now. All right? I can't do that. Hopefully on the 22nd July 2024, our APRC executive will also come out. APRC NATO Alliance executive will come out and talk about some of the projects that were implemented by the APRC government. And we're going to repeat the same when we come back to government. So therefore, for Gambia to change meaningfully, for Gambia to change positively, for Gambia to go forward, for us to resume unprecedented development, for us to elevate Gambian people from the current suffering, APRC will become important in that factor. APRC will become a very important player in Gambia's future. So therefore, I'm appealing to all of you to give APRC another chance to return to power, regulate our streets, cross crime, bring about employment, again, mechanize agriculture, take our fishing licenses back, mechanize our fishing, improve our fishing facilities, change everything completely. Security will go back to us again. Every single thing that was being run successfully, medical services, education, will be back to tip-top condition again under the APRC government. We're confident. That's what we want to do in the Gambia. Give us a chance to do it. Make sure you consider anybody that the APRC puts forward for elections in 2026. Or if the APRC is going to be part of a coalition, the ethos of the APRC, the culture of APRC, of work hard, play hard, develop. Look at Gambia first. Africa comes into the equation. Look at humanity. Feel sorry for Gambia. Be sympathetic to the plight of Gambian population. That's the APRC mantra. Public interest before individual interest. National interest before personal interest. That's what the APRC is all about. Self-sufficiency. We produce our own products, our own food. We look after ourselves. We feed ourselves. We treat ourselves. We educate ourselves. That's the direction Gambia needs to go. And only APRC is going to deliver that to the Gambia. Forget about anybody else. It's a coalition with APRC an important player or APRC winning and then bringing back to the Gambian households. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'll end this YouTube live today. It's your compatriot, Lamin Tamba, Voice of Lamin Tamba on YouTube channel, Voice of Lamin Tamba 1, Voice of Lamin Tamba 2 on WhatsApp, Volt 1, Volt 2. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a very good evening and enjoy the rest of your week. Lamin Tamba. Thank you. Bye.